Wow, what a crazy and entertaining year this has been for the mob genre. And I'm happy to report that the state of the mob is hanging on in 2024. There are a lot of items we'll cover today, including the best stories of 2024, the biggest interviews, who got released from prison, who died. I'll also tell you the biggest surprises of 2024 that's going to shock you, and what's going on with the biggest names in this mob genre. So you don't want to miss today's episode of Real Mob Stories with James Proctor. And I appreciate everybody here today to help us out by hitting the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Without further delay, on to our feature presentation. So let's talk about the biggest names out there. You know, nothing has really changed since this time last year. Michael Franzese, number one, and Sammy Gravano, number two in the genre. When you look at the number of subscribers, views, and just name recognition. And what I've noticed about Michael this year, he continues to expand his brand. He went to Europe. He was did quite a few interviews out there, so his brand is really expanding into a global one. And you know, when you go to UK, there's a lot of people that are interested in the mob. There seems to be a lot of interest there, and even here, you know, like with my channel, when I look at the statistics on who watches and all that, the people from England, the UK, are number two, which it kind of surprises me. I would have thought maybe Canada was, but it's the UK. So there's a lot of people from UK that uh, enjoy mob content, and so Michael is capitalizing on that. And I had him on here myself. I interviewed him back in April. I thought it was a good interview. If you hadn't seen it, you can see it in the description below. I'll You'll be able to watch it. But you know, I thought it was a good interview because he was tackling subjects that he hadn't discussed in other interviews. And that's one of the things I try to do when I bring these people on is not just cover what everyone knows and try to, you know, dig a little bit deeper. But I felt he was very gracious. You know, I really like him. He's tried to help me with my channel. He's someone that, you know, that I can rely on and talk to from, you know, someone that has success here on YouTube. And so anyway, you know, I think that he's done a really good job. And he's really expanded, and I would say his mob content's just a kind of a small part of that overall brand. And you know, he's really capitalized on that. And then when you have Sammy Gravano, you know what I've known about him, what he's done different this year actually is he's been on a lot of interviews. He's been pretty much everywhere, and I kind of wonder if he's starting to saturate himself a little bit. But I know why he's doing that because you know he really put in the effort and to get a scripted television show, and that's something that you know he's been trying to do. You know, ever since he got out of prison, like in 2016, 2017. And so we know now that there is going to be a scripted show on FX. Have no idea when it's going to be out. It's probably going to be at least a year and a half to 2 years. And I always thought that he wouldn't be able to get a show because of his personality and how he wants to be in charge of everything. And I also felt that the controversies around him were a little you know, too much even for, you know, cable television, you know, with all the murders and everything. I mean, you look at Michael Franzese and you have someone that exhibits charisma and someone that you know, people have a comfort level with. You know, with Sammy, you know, he still is a gangster today or thinks he's a gangster. And so, no, not a good person, obviously, but you know, he said he accepted Christ. He's you know, said he's trying to make changes, but you know, I still think he needs to, if he's really serious about that walk, he really needs to try to talk to the families of the victims that, you know, especially, you know, Joy Faraci, because you know Alan Kaiser was not in the mob. He was someone that was tragically taken and had nothing to do with that life. So, that's something that's well overdue, in my opinion, is some sort of apology, uh, and at least a way to get some closure for the Fracci's. So, anyway, Sammy, I got threatened by him this year. But I don't take it too serious. So, um, that's just how Sammy is, and so anyway, I think that people will watch that show when it gets produced, and it seems like it's a good group. The producers and the people that's behind the show, like the showrunners and all that. I think they got some good people, so it should do pretty well, in my opinion. Especially, and I think FX is a good channel because that's geared towards men and shows and movies and content that men like. So, I think it's probably a good channel. If you didn't have it on like HBO or one of those premium channels, I think the FX is a good one. You'll still have to tone it down just a little bit, with the language and the violence because it's considered part of basic cable, but it is I think a good uh, place for this show to be. So, I don't know anything more about it, but we'll definitely let you know. So, also Joey Merlino, it's been another interesting year for him. This is his second year out here in the, social media. He does mostly Patreon, but a lot of the shows get released on YouTube as well, at least segments of it. He's still doing the Wrath of the Month and all that. He, he's definitely a person that's controversial. He even went after mob legends like Sonny Franzese, John Gotti Jr. He went after, but the thing about Joey Merlino, like him or not, he's going to speak his mind, and doesn't matter what people think. And then also from the media, there's a lot of reports about his standing with the Philly mob. I've always been of the opinion that he got out of that, a few years ago, when he got out of prison the last time, and I just don't, I didn't feel that he was still a part of it. Other people thought he was, and so for last year going into this year, there was all these reports of meetings taking place between the Genovese family, the Philly crime family, Gambinos, that they were not happy with Joey Merlino having a show on YouTube and Patreon. So only thing, and then the rumors are that he got shelved from the family. Um, we covered that, but we also know that he pretty much is going where he wants. Last week he was in front of Rayo's, and so it just seems like that. There's, if he's supposedly shelved, I mean, it's not really affecting what he's doing. And then in the summer, there was a cheesesteak restaurant that he's trying to be part of. I don't know where that's at actually at this point, but I know that his name was behind a cheesesteak, and they had a couple of bombings, and one was the main one was where they threw, I guess they found Molotov cocktails or something inside the restaurant, or was thrown through a window or something like that. And it seemed like it's more of an amateur job, not sure what it was. No one's been found guilty of it. Whatever damage it was pretty minor, but there was at least two incidents where, someone apparently wasn't happy, or they were just trying to make a name for themselves by doing this mischief. And so, and then I think also, obviously, he went on Vlad TV. We'll definitely talk about that. Other things in the genre. Dominic Cicale, he had threats on his life from people from his past. He continues to talk about an ongoing beef with Bonanno boss Michael Mancuso. Also, we broke a story here where he had a situation where he's swindled by a woman named Yvonne Rossetti, and I had spoken with her as well. And this was more of a business dealing um, where money was taken, and also other thing with Dominic, he's got a book out called The Perfect Crime Family, and then other people and then there's a couple other books that people in the genre have created. You've got Red Hook, Brooklyn Mafia Ground Zero, that was written by Frank DiMatteo. I've interviewed him. I've interviewed Dominic as well. And then RJ Roger, he just released a book. It's called The Don 36 Rules of the Bosses. Really a good read. And so we should be having RJ here as a guest, in the next week or two. And then Mikey Scars, they're continuing to do what they've been doing. Their Patreon's going well. And then I would say that some of the biggest news this year has been around John Gotti Jr. We know earlier in the year where his wife and daughter were involved in an altercation at a basketball game, and those charges, they were basically assault, minor misdemeanor charges, but those charges got dropped this fall. And then also, John Gotti Jr.'s been on in 2 interviews. He rarely does interviews, but he had 2 interviews, and we'll talk about that. And then I would say, just other little stuff that's happened. Gene Borello, he, at the beginning of the year, he was in jail for violation of his supervised release. He finally got through with that, and so he was no longer on paper, no longer on probation, nothing like that with the feds. So pretty much everything was done with the feds. And then he gets in trouble at a restaurant where he gets in an altercation with someone, and he gets assault charges and I believe criminal mischief against him, and those charges end up getting dismissed maybe a month ago. So as of now, he's pretty much not on paper anymore. So we'll see if he can stay out of trouble. And besides that, I do have a couple of things I want to bring up. I want to announce my picks for this year. A couple of things. The best interview of the year. I think we had several great interviews this year. We had Joey Merlino with Vlad. Personally, I didn't think it was a good interview. The thing is, Joey Merlino's not going to say anything on YouTube or Patreon of substance. He's not going to admit to anything regarding that life. So anyone thinking that he's going to be a good interview, nope, it's not going to be the case. And Vlad, I thought parts of it was pretty good, but for the most part, nothing new came out of it. And then we had the John Gotti interview with Burner. Burner's a friend and a business partner with John Gotti Jr. And that was his first interview. I don't know, since probably around 2018 or so, when the Gotti movie was out with John Travolta. And I thought that the interview was okay. I mean, I thought that a lot of it, I already knew most everything, because I'd read the book. Some of the stories that John Gotti Jr. said, I already knew those. But, definitely Burner and Gotti Jr. had, good chemistry, definitely have a friendship there. But, I didn't really learn too much new. And then Angel, John Gotti Jr.'s sister. He did a great interview of Armand Assante, and Armand Assante is one that played Gotti in the 1996 HBO film. And, I thought that it was an interesting interview, and he's a real gentleman, to be honest with you. And Sammy Gravano, Michael Franzese, Dominic Cicale, Anthony Ruggiano, Gene Burrell, they were on a lot of different big name interviews. Nothing really just stood out on any of those. I mean, they've been interviewed, all those names have been interviewed quite a bit. But then just recently, we had the John Gotti Jr. interview with Patrick Bet David, a 3.5 hour explosive interview. And I thought it was great. I thought we learned a lot. And I thought Patrick Bet David did a great job with that interview. And for that reason, I have to say that the Patrick Bet David interview of John Gotti Jr. is the interview of the year in this genre. And so one of the biggest items this year, so we'll go on to like some what I consider from an investigative reporting standpoint, the biggest story of the year, something we did not know this time last year. So I actually did an investigation on, I spent, quite a bit of time doing it on William Bentvena. Wanted to know who the real Billy Bats was because we were told a story by Henry Hill that was in Wise Guy, the book with Nicholas Pileggi, and was in the movie Goodfellas, which the book Wise Guy was based off of. And we've had this story out here for over 35 years who Billy Bats was, and everyone's believed it. And what I was able to do is prove that it was wrong. Henry Hill was not correct. You know, at at best, he was just mistaken, because the names were similar. But at worst, he was very misleading and lied to us. And William Bentvena was was never known as Billy Bats. I spoke with family members. I did a lot of in-depth research. I went back through all the records that we have, criminal records, records in the newspapers of the day, went through the court documents of his arrest and everything. And William Bentvena was never made. He was not part of the Gambino family. He did get arrested in 1959 as part of the case with Carmine Galante, a lot of the wise guys that were involved in a heroin trade, the heroin case through Canada. Basically, they had set up the pipeline from Italy to Canada and the US. And William Bentvena was was like a mule, a drug mule. He would send drugs to a couple of the clubs and I believe receive money and that type of thing. And so his role was very, very, very minor compared to everyone else. And he was with another guy, a friend. And what we found out is that William Bentvena got involved in the mob through his brother-in-law, through his wife's brother, and so that's how he got involved in this. But he was never anything but a low-level Lucchese associate, and so the real Billy Bats was actually a guy named William Batista. He was known as Billy Bats. He was an associate with the Gambino family. He was someone close to the Bergen crew. He knew John Gotti, but William Batista became an informant, in the 70s. And he wasn't ever made. He was not, was more of a drug type guy. But what happened was that Henry Hill, I believe, is probably a combination of forgetting facts and then embellishing a story. And so he confused William Bentvena with William Batista and kind of combined two parts of a story to come up with that. And one of the things I'm trying to do next is find out who Spider was. There's some people say he's real. Some people said that his sister called into the Howard Stern show. And, I do remember that, Henry Hill was being interviewed by Howard Stern. He was drunk, pretty much every time he was on with Howard Stern. And supposedly the sister called in and, it was pretty good information that made it credible. But, I also got a photo of someone that was given to me, said that this is the guy. Um, Spider, but we got a couple of names, couple of leads, but I haven't been able to get too deep in that. So that's kind of the next piece of this of looking at Goodfellas and really just dissecting what Henry Hill said because he's definitely an unreliable narrator. And, to me, it's a big story. It's interesting. Jerry Capisi, Anthony DeStefano, none of those people brought out the truth, and it was available to them for over 35 years. No one did it. And, I am proud of being able to come up with this truth because, this changes everything we thought we knew about Goodfellas. And I'm not one to toot my own horn. I let others do that. And it's kind of funny. Several people brought up how it was a joke that Jeff Nadeau had this list of the best mob shows of 2024 and how I'm ranked number 10 or whatever. I don't know, 10, 9, 11, 12, whatever it is. I don't really care what he thinks, doesn't matter to me. I don't do this show to impress Jeff Nadeau, but what matters are that the people like you that watch and subscribe, you're what matters to me. I'm here for all of you. And that's, I want to bring out content that you like and enjoy. And I'm always supportive of other content creators. I know not everyone likes me. I know that if you can't be everything to everyone. So you're always going to have people that don't like you, and you have to have thick skin when you're here on YouTube. And for me, it's just kind of humorous when people put out these lists and everything, and how people get triggered by it. For me, it is what it is. I mean, whatever you think, and what I can say is, I do want to segue into what we've done here this year is, I don't do lives. I don't put as much long form content as some of the other content creators. And, this was done on purpose as I wanted to get people to learn and enjoy the history of Cosa Nostra. And I knew that doing bite sized 60-second shorts was the best way to capture the attention of other people. And, I'm really proud of the 1,000 or so shorts I've had with so many of them about guys no one had ever brought up before. So there's a lot of plans for 2025, and I'll talk about them in the next week. But what we're doing here, I'm proud of. We've grown the channel this year, doubling it to over 36,000 subscribers this year. I still remember a year and a half ago, we just had 7,000. So we're doing something right, I suppose. But I don't worry about what other content creators want to say about me. I just care what you do here and if you enjoy the content. So, next part is the compassionate release. I interviewed Chad Marks, who's a real big advocate of that. And so, to me, we've had some pretty big names that have gotten out in compassionate release. 5 names in particular, I just want to mention: Ronnie One Arm Trucchio. We got Joey Testa, Anthony Center. I was very surprised about those two. Little Anthony Donato was released on it, and then Tommy Reynolds. So Tommy Reynolds is still in. Uh, he's still there in Oatsville, I believe, and they're just waiting for a spot to open up in a halfway house that's close to home. And so that's the only reason he's still still there and hasn't been let out. So we still have a lot of older people in prison that need to be looked at. They need to be have their cases relooked, in my opinion. Vic Amuso, Vic Arena, and Bobby Manna are three in particular. We did have several that were denied this year. Stephen Crea, his appeal was denied. Jackie Ross was denied. We had Ronnie G. He's trying to get a compassionate release. And then we had three others that's in progress. Eddie Boyle, Joseph Meldish just this week, the purple gang leader, I'd be surprised that he would get out. He's still fairly young. John Papa wants to get out. Um, that's another one. He's been in jail since he was, I think, 20 or so. So, we'll see about that. And then finally, just want to talk about the deaths this year. We've had a lot of these wise guys, a lot of these old timers that are dying, and there's been dozens that have passed away this year. And so I just want to maybe bring up a couple of them. Jackie Nose D'Amico actually was in December 27th of last year that he died. And, he was a Gambino acting boss. Mikey Scars skipper, someone Mikey Scars very, had a lot of respect for, and a dear friend of John Gotti. Then we had Big Frank Coppa, age 82. Jeff Nadeau actually announced that last year. He died October of last year, but it wasn't confirmed until this year. It was just weird that it didn't come out until, I don't know, 8 months after he had died. But it was nice that the New York Times actually acknowledged Jeff Nadeau for putting that out there. And we know he is a big money maker for the Bonanno family. Guy was involved in the Sonny Black hit close to Joe Messino, and it was his when he flipped. He was kind of the first domino that caused the rest of these Bonannos to flip. You went to Good Looking Sal Vitale and others. Once that happened, they all flipped. And so he was the first one. Quiet Dom Cirillo. He 94 years old, big deal, born and raised in East Harlem, a boxer. His father was actually in the Colombo family. This guy was a capo regime, a concierge, an acting boss, real close to Chin Gigante. He also allegedly had his son Nicholas taken out over an incident in 2004 with Vinny Gorgeous Bassiano and Dominic Cicale. And then in a more of a shocking death, we had Anthony Tony Cakes Conigliario. And he was 86 years old, and in June got hit by a vehicle while crossing the street. Very, kind of stayed to himself. Was not necessarily, you know, just an old timer that had been with the Genovese family a long time, and he got his nickname because he owned a company that made cakes and desserts. Then in July, Joe C. Caridi, he died. He was a legacy concierge for a while, ran a lot of rackets there in Long Island. Vinny Unions, Ricciardo, he died in August. Actually, he'd gotten a compassionate release, but it was too late. He got the compassionate release, died the next day before he could be released. But he's a big money maker with the Colombos. Obviously based on his name, he was involved in unions. And then also in October, you had Sally Bread Cambria. He was a soldier, also the Colombos. He had a bakery and was close to the guy, Joe C., that also died. Gotti associate Mark Ryder, 76 years old. He died from cancer. He tried to get a compassionate release, but was denied. It's just crazy to me. And, they would not, let him out. And he was in there for, drugs, basically dealing drugs. Joseph Di Napoli, he was another one, part of the ruling panel of the legacies. He was a money maker through gambling and bookmaking. Also had Stevie Gallo. That was a nephew of Crazy Joe. I actually didn't even know who the guy was, but he was a nephew of Crazy Joe. He ran out of the Casabella restaurant. Um, that Crazy Joe's brother Albert, who goes by Kid Blast, he's still alive. He's almost 100, I believe. But yeah, Stevie Gallo, very low key Genovese. And then just this month, lost two more. JoJo Corozzo, longtime capo regime of the Gambinos. He was on the ruling panel. He was a concierge. He had brothers, a lot of family members in the mob, in the Gambinos. His son is a big time lawyer, and so and then finally we have Baby Shacks Manocchio, former boss of the Patriarcha family in the early 2000s. He ran things out of Providence, Rhode Island. Very low key guy. He kind of helped to get the family back in order after all the wars and problems in the 1990s. But what we're seeing is more and more of these old timers are dying. So that's all for today's show. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What are the most memorable stories of 2024 in your opinion? Also, what are your thoughts on the John Gotti Jr. interview? And then also, what do you think about Joey Merlino's interview he had with Vlad? Um, we see all these old timers still in prison, like Vic Amuso, Vic Arena, Bobby Manna. Do you think they should be allowed to go home to die, or should they just die in prison? Let's have a great discussion below. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and God bless you always.